Within 5 years of releasing this calculator model, they had already sold 6 million units. If you've watched the first videos in my watch series, you'll see that my watch journey began with a single watch, the Casio Databank. So I'll be sharing my thoughts on this watch, the features, and why I still think this is a very relevant watch today. Now, this is a watch that I described always seeing my dad with. This was the first one that I became aware of existing. So years later, I have my own one, and for some reason I hadn't gotten one till now. When I first saw this watch, the coolest thing about it was my dad always wore it. It was his one watch at that time, and all I knew was it has a calculator, and that's cool because it has something that you wouldn't uniquely see on a watch back in those days. And that's why I call it the original Apple Watch, because now we have the Apple Watch with all the features at your disposal. But something much more minimalist or old-fashioned retro is this data bank, which when it first came out, it was one of the first watches to be able to store information. It's digital, quartz. It was during the quartz revolution. It was one of the biggest moves in the watch world because it was putting something like a calculator at your disposal on your wrist. So a bit of history. Casio brought the first data bank watch around 1980. By 1983, they were out with what we recognize now as this model. Not the exact one, because now they have different colors. But it was so successful that within 5 years of releasing this calculator model, they had already sold 6 million units. And so this watch is really interesting because although it's not an expensive watch, very budget, it's around $25 if you look for it right now. This is a watch worn by everyone and anyone. Regardless of your budget, you can see wealthy people wearing this, not so wealthy people, any type of person. This is an appealing watch, and we're going to talk about why it is. So just to highlight a few features, this watch, rectangle shape, very reminiscent of what an Apple Watch looks like today. It's actually very close to those dimensions. I'd say it's a little bit smaller, a little bit wider, but one of the cool features is it's very light, so when you put it on, you'll forget you're wearing it. We now have different colors because now Casio's doing throwbacks and retro. You know, everyone's interested in bringing back the old school stuff. So not only do we have the original black model, we now have green, blue, white. There's a color for everyone there. So we've got a full calendar. It has the day, date, the month, and the year. This is basically a calendar up to the year 2099, which is ridiculous. And it's on your wrist. And if you know about all these watches that are out there, the annual calendars or anything with a calendar in general, mechanically is very expensive. So digitally, it's just amazing that, at the press of a button, you're seeing the full calendar date, including leap years and all that stuff, with minimal intervention or interaction to have to modify it once you set it. We've got 2 time zones, so it's basically a GMT, a dual time. You can put your time in military if that's your choice. We've got a calculator, like I said. You can add, subtract, multiply, divide, the basics. The cool thing also is we have an alarm, so you can set your alarm. Pressing the button that's on the side, you go through the modes. You keep scrolling, or pressing, you have a stopwatch. With the stopwatch, like any other chronograph, you can press it to go and it'll count elapsed time. You can count laps and so on and clear it. This model is not really as water resistant. I would say this is more splash proof. You wouldn't go swimming with this one, but as an everyday light watch, it makes the cut. The other feature is it has a 5-year battery, which is great because, like I said, once you set the calendar, you won't have to set it again until you have to replace the battery, basically. We're looking at a 24mm lug width here. Very easy to replace. It uses the same spring bar system that you'd find on any other watch. The spring bar is actually small. It's actually around 19 or 20 at the spring bars. but because of the integrated shape design they have on here, it actually widens to 24 to fully go at the width of the shape. So it goes from 24, which is actually a 20 spring bar, down to about 17 and a half. So it tapers down nicely. It has the very integrated look. So if you're looking into an integrated bracelet watch, this would be one of them. Going the long way, lug to lug, we're talking 43, 42, 43, and wide, we're at 34. And then the thickness, 7.8. So it's a very light watch. I think the proportions are good because they would fit most wrists and it won't look too big or too small on anyone's wrist. The one thing I will say is, yes, the buttons are small, so you do kind of have to like pick at them, but they're spaced out decently where I'd say I can touch each button without, I mean, you might press some of them by accident, but for the most part, doing basic math, and I mean, that's the usability here. Let's see, if I put 2, yeah, so it's not bad at all. I think you could probably press some buttons by accident, but if you actually pick at it in the right way, you won't have an issue. They're spaced out pretty well. So the interesting thing is you're gonna see on this watch, legibility, I would say, is not as great. You're gonna have to really have it against a bright light, sunlight, to see the time because they reversed the color scheme, what you would typically see. So you would typically see a screen that's blank with just the black outline of the numbers. Here that's reversed, so that's gonna be a challenge there. So it's fun to be able to share this one with you. I recommend this watch to people who want to have features like the stopwatch and the dual time and the date without having to carry something on them that's expensive, or if an alternative to the Apple Watch, like you don't want to have something electronic on your wrist, you want to go a little bit more retro and do analog. This is a very easy watch to wear. It's comfy, it's light, it's got all the features at the press of one button. You go through each mode. Very easy to like this watch, and I could see why people from all kinds of budget ranges opt to have one of these in their collection. And believe it or not, these get sold out pretty well on Amazon. So keep your eye on there for one of these because they are selling. And even though this has been in production, or this design has been in production since the 80s, it's still on demand. Well, thank you for watching this video. This was just a quick look at this watch, and I recommend it because it's not only one that I have attachment to because it's the first one that I was introduced to, but it's also a very easy watch to wear if you're working out, if you don't want to think about what you're wearing so much. It's just a watch you put on every day, you know, not care. It's so light you'll forget it's there. Fits any wrist. The shape reminds you of what we now think of as the Apple Watch. So it's very appealing design. It has the integrated bracelet. Easy to replace these bracelets. It's functional. It's a beading watch. I mean, if this gets messed up, you know, damaged, you won't care as much. You know, you'll just replace it. So it's something that's very disposable. And because of that, you're probably going to want to wear it more because it's going to be one of those careless watches you just put on and enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around and we've got more coming.